Hey guys, welcome back to Dramatically Expatic. Welcome back to my channel, to this little coffee talk that we are having today in the nature, in the park. And I wanted to talk about rent today. Again, I know, because a couple of months ago I already talked about rent, but that time I talked about rent in general. You know, rent in Italy, what to know, the fees, the prices, and all things about rent. Today I want to focus on rent in Florence specifically, the districts, what to know about if you're looking for a flat here, if you're planning to move here, you know, all the basics and the specifics of this city. And I want to share my tips. I want to share something that I've learned while looking for a flat here, something that I've heard from other people, and, you know, discover Florence as a city and the rental market here. Before we begin, guys, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, hit the bell button if you're new here, if you just subscribe, so you don't miss any other videos that are coming up soon. And if you want to support my channel, you can hit the thanks button down below or follow the link in the description box and buy me a cup of coffee. Speaking of coffee, thank you so much to everyone who's already donated to my channel. You are helping me a lot in making this all happen, making these videos happen. You are helping me to help you and share my tips and share all the amazing places that I visit. So thank you so much. And now let's get into the video. Now I'll start right away by saying the harsh truth. Finding a place to rent in Florence can be difficult. Because there are so many short-term lets, it is really difficult to find something long-term if you're planning to live here, to move here. But it is doable. It is absolutely doable, and I tell you a little bit more about all this stuff in my other video. But today I wanted to start with the districts, because the first thing, you know, when you're moving into a new city, the first thing you want to know is where to look for an apartment. And I will not cover every single district of Florence, but I will focus on the ones that I was considering and, you know, the pros and cons of them, and the ones that are usually the most popular among expats. So first thing first, of course, I wanted to talk about the city center. The city center has so many perks. Of course, you're living in the heart of Florence. You are enjoying all of the benefits of living in the city center, the proximity of all the museums and cool places, and you can go out easily, of course. You are right in the heart of the city, in the bustle of everything. But it also has so many downsides. Honestly, I was considering city center more as a backup option. I never really wanted to live in the heart of Florence because Florence is very touristy. And now with the peak season coming, guys, it's getting quite unbearable to just be living there. If you're not a tourist, if you're living there, just imagine having to navigate the crowds of people every single day when you're going to the supermarket or, you know, just out and about. And it's noisy and it can get pretty noisy, especially at nights in certain areas of the city center. And then even going out, it may seem like a perfect place to go out if you love to do so, but you need to know the places still, because you will not want to go out to the touristy places that will be overcrowded and overpriced. So, you know, I feel like city center is a little bit tricky. Then yes, of course, you may have the apartment with an amazing view over Duomo, maybe, but also chances are you will have to find a hole, because many apartments there are not of the highest quality unless you're ready to pay a lot. The prices in the city center are ridiculously high, and often you will have to pay these high prices for older houses with potential mold problems or something else. So I think, you know, it's a very tricky place. If you're ready to pay a lot and you want to have the view and the charm of the city center, then yes, go for it. But if you're planning to, you know, stay long term and maybe settling down, then maybe consider other areas as well. Now, another area that I could recommend is Oltrarno, and Oltrarno is one of my favorite areas in Florence in general. It is still very central. You still get all the architecture, the narrow streets, you know, all of this ancient charm, the ancient houses and all, but it is way less touristy. Yes, there are still tourists, of course, but Oltrarno is a big area. It's the other side of the river from the main city center where tourists usually stay, and there are less tourists, and also there are areas where tourists don't even go. So I feel like Oltrarno might be the best of both worlds. You know, you get all the Florentine charm without all the crowds and the noise, and if you want to go out, there are so many good places. Most of them are actually pretty good. There are way less touristy places. So, you know, you can find the cafes, the coffee shops for the day, and all the cool bars, restaurants for the evening, for the night. I love going out in Oltrarno. I think it's the best area for going out in Florence. But also, you can get the community feel in Oltrarno area that you may not necessarily find in the city center, because as I said, there are these areas that are more secluded from tourists. So, you know, there are these little markets, little shops, local shops, and I have a feeling that, you know, there is this community in Oltrarno, so you will actually experience real life in Florence there, while still being close to the city center and everything. So yeah, I think it might be a good option. The only downside of Oltrarno, in my opinion, is that the tram does not arrive to most areas, to the most central areas of Oltrarno. So, you know, it might be a bit complicated if you need to navigate it a lot. But on the other side, you know, it's not really that bad. My personal favorite areas of Oltrarno are the San Nicolo area and also the area around Porta Romana. So yeah, then, you know, guys, you can consider different areas of that district, and I would say most of them are good. The prices are still on the higher end in Oltrarno because it's still quite popular, but maybe a little bit less than in the city center. Some other areas that are located not far from the city center and are also good are Le Cure and Campo Marte, but beware guys, not all of the areas bordering with the city center are good. When I was searching for an apartment, I was repeatedly told that the area around Portal Prato is not good at all, and I was advised to stay away from that area. I can't say much. It's located very near the city center, just on the opposite side, but you know, it's like near the Cascine Park, and it seems like a good area geographically speaking, location speaking, but I was said that it's a little bit sketchy. I don't know why. I can't say much about it because I don't really go there, but that's what I know, that's what I heard, so I'm telling that to you. On the other hand, if you're willing to go a little bit outside of the city center, I would recommend you to consider Novoli. Novoli is a more modern area of Florence. You will find the community there for sure. You will find all the amenities there. There are lots of shops, supermarkets, shopping centers, cinemas, parks, even art centers and art spaces, tons of nice cafes and restaurants, and it's like the residential area, full-on residential area where you can live, where you can thrive and go into the city center if you just want to change the scenery, because there is everything in Novoli. And there is also a tram, a very good tram connection between Novoli and the city center, so you can get there without the car in minutes, and I feel like it can be a good option. Then there are also many modern constructions, modern buildings, so you can find better quality accommodation there as well, more modern accommodation. But then on the other hand, of course, you will not get all the Renaissance and history and charm. So based on what you're looking for, it might be a good fit, might not be a good fit. I feel like it's also a good fit for families, but if you're just a young professional or maybe a retired person, then you may consider other areas, more central areas as well. One area that I would not recommend you is Le Piagge. Virtually there is nothing to do there because there is nothing interesting, nothing of interest for an expat potentially. I've heard that it is not safe, that it is quite dangerous. I can't say much, guys, I've never been there, but just telling you what I've heard, that it's better to stay clear of that area. In fact, the prices there are lower. When I was looking for an apartment, I've seen it, but maybe for a reason. However, if you're willing to go, it's basically in the suburbs of Florence. It's definitely not central and it's quite far from the city center. So I was saying, if you're willing to go into the suburbs, there are way nicer suburbs that you may want to consider, like Scandicci, for example, or Sesto Fiorentino, or Fiesole. Fiesole is absolutely amazing. It is located in the hills, surrounded by the nature. It's gorgeous, but keep in mind that the prices in Fiesole are also quite high. First of all, but also it's true for Sesto Fiorentino, for almost everything. The prices in Florence, the rental prices, are higher than in many other Italian cities because it's Florence. So if you live in close proximity to the city, the prices will go up, of course. But then these areas are quite nice generally, they're well connected, and it could be a good option if you're willing to live in the suburbs. Florence in particular is at higher risk of flooding. Even though the city center has not seen, luckily, any major floods since the big and bad flood of 1968, there are some areas that occasionally get flooded. This year, for example, when Tuscany was suffering from severe floods, Sesta Fiorentino, for example, was quite badly flooded. So, you know, the downside, something to consider, but also I feel like it's really difficult to predict, you know, because some areas might get flooded one year, the other areas might get flooded another year. So it's just something to keep in mind. My top advice to avoid or to minimize, you know, the outcomes of flooding would be to avoid ground floor apartments. Personally, I would never go to live in a ground floor apartment, guys. Like, it's my personal rule, even though they tend to cost less. Now, one thing to consider, guys, if you end up living in the city center or in Oltrarno area, is that parking spaces are very, very scarce. So if you're planning to have a car and drive around, keep that in mind. Finding a parking spot is super difficult in more central areas, but you can rent a parking spot or even garage. But usually the prices can go up to 200 euros per month. So add that on top of your rental price, because you know, it will definitely increase it if you are having a car. On the other hand, many people don't have a car, because actually moving around Florence, you don't really need a car, especially if you live in the central area. And then to go somewhere else, there are plenty of trains, or you can rent a car. So, you know, consider this. Also, guys, Florence is one of the most expensive Italian cities in terms of car insurance. So might be another reason to say no to having a car, but you know, just something to know. Now, when looking for a home, your perfect home in Florence, you can do it yourself or you can do it with a realtor. Chances are, even if you're doing it yourself and browsing internet ads, you will still have to deal with the real estate agency in the middle. Keep in mind that realtors will usually ask you for a fee, which may be like 10 to 15% of your annual contract price, or sometimes if you are renting a short-term apartment, they may ask for a fee that would equal to a 1 month's rent, something like that. You can do it without the realtor. Honestly, I've had experiences with both renting an apartment through a real estate agency and doing it on my own. Both cases work. It was never a deliberate choice on my side. It's just how the things turned out, you know. If you are looking for a house without the real estate in the middle, double check everything to make sure it's a real owner of the house trying to rent out an apartment and not a scammer, because sadly scams happen. However, if you're doing everything right, you know, and you've checked the owner, don't be afraid to ask for proof. Don't be afraid to ask for documents. Make sure that everything is written well in the contract. Also, you will usually have to pay the deposit fee. The deposit can be up to 3 months worth of rent. I talked more about it in my other video. I will leave you a link up here, so check it out for fees and utilities and other prices and, you know, cost of renting an apartment. But yeah, you can do it yourself or you can do it with real estate. Guys, this wind is killing the vibe. I hope to talk a little bit more, but I think I will probably do a part 2 when the weather is a little bit better, because, you know, it's just so sad that it's happening, but you can never know. Anyway, I hope that this part was helpful. Stay tuned for part 2. Stay tuned for the part where I want to talk about how to save money on rent and living in Florence in general. And I will share my best, you know, cost-saving tips with you. So stay tuned. And once again, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I think the part 2 is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, we'll get back to this talk. And now, guys, I think it's time to say bye. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I think I will have to find some shelter from this wind. And I will see you next week. Thank you again and have a wonderful day ahead.